Two things. If you have not filled out your Super Bowl square, please come find me. It's ballot access, 50-50. So you can. I have to buy it pre-release. All right. We're going to have a lot of.
That's a preview of something coming later.
And then the second thing is just to make sure everybody knows, 2752 is the magic room number. Hope to see you all there. 2752, 3 o'clock, doors open.
Thank you. Dr. Lark, then Ms. DeSisto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If by chance there are any people who are registered to vote in the Commonwealth of Virginia and have as of yet not signed a petition to help place the Libertarian ticket on this ballot, please let me know. I'm pleased to say Mr. Krause was kind enough to sign my petition, but if by chance there are any Virginians who are willing to sign the petition, I would be happy to receive it.
Sadly, our executive director chose to be a free stater.
Well, you know, immaterial, you should refer to Virginia as the American side of the tongue.
Thank you, Dr. Lark. Ms. DeSisto?
Yes, I see a lot of you have bags and are leaving right after this meeting. I just want to say that if you can't make the ballot access party, we would still welcome your donations. And I hope that you express that interest to me before you leave.
Thank you. Any other members of the gallery or members of the board that want to make public comment? Seeing none. I have orders of the day as we have 10 minutes for pet and young child membership, 10 minutes for debate participation with Mr. Ford, regional reports and announcements. Are there any motions to amend the agenda? Mr. Longstreth?
I would make a motion to amend the agenda to discuss media on our website regarding presidential debates at state conventions.
How long?
10 minutes.
10 minutes from Mr. Longstreth. Media.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
You're right. I'm trying. Can you give me a short title for the agenda item, just for my notes?
Presidential debates on website.
Presidential debates.
You said 10 minutes?
On
10 minutes.
LP website. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, that will be inserted after the debate participation item and immediately prior to regional reports. Any other, Ms. Harlos?
Yes, I would like to add 20 minutes to try to finish up those policy manual items from yesterday.
Ms. Harlos would like to amend the agenda to add 20 minutes to finish up the policy manual items from yesterday. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any objection?
When on the agenda?
It would be immediately after the thing that we just added, but immediately prior to the regional reports.
Question, we still have the new business section without prior notice?
We do. This is the point at which we would be adding. Yeah. So, but before that, is there any objection to the 20 minutes for the policy manual changes? Hearing none, Ms. Van Horn.
How long was media, by the way?
Media was 10.
10 minutes.
A member of LPIN had sent notices to a couple members, and I was one of them, of this board, about LP, our page, sharing information to Facebook, and I would like to have us discuss that. The other issue I want to discuss, which is totally separate from that, was something that prompted me yesterday.
Orders, and we deal with one at a time.
Oh, one at a time.
We do. So it is clearer if we deal with each agenda item you're requesting to add separately, because there may be people who support one or not the other. So what was the first one? Is
discussing the LP page, our Libertarian Party internet page, sharing information to Facebook.
oh, it's moved and seconded to amend the agenda for how long?
That's a good one. I wouldn't, 15 minutes could be done sooner if it wants.
I would suggest you might ask for 10, and it may be more likely to go without objection.
10?
Is there any objection to that? Look at that work. All right, 10 minutes for Facebook data sharing. Go ahead.
Okay, the second believe the people that are managing the debate at our national convention are also our convention committee. And one of those people who was orchestrating the debate, who was, the debate organizer, is now a VP candidate for the Libertarian Party, and other members of that committee are also, and Sam is publicly endorsed Ken, which is fine, but I think there's a conflict of interest. There is a conflict of interest between the people that organize that debate and also members of the same committee running for office where the debate will be moderated and organized. I would like to have that discussed. 10 minutes.
Just a question. Is there an intended LNC action associated with that discussion?
Well,
Is there something that this board can do that you would ask it to do?
Well, I figured that would come out in discussion because I don't know what we can do.
Well, that's a little cart before the horse. What the members of the body need to know before they know whether or not they want to give you the agenda time to discuss it is this discussion going to lead to a motion of some sort, or is this going to be just a discussion?
Okay, would it be better to have this on email, then that way we can...
If it's just discussion, it's more likely that it would be better to do it in different. Okay. Mr. Goldstein.
If you would indulge me for a moment, I think I could address the concerns.
Without objection, very briefly. Go ahead.
Ken has already said he's going to recuse himself from any discussion whatsoever about any of the debates. In fact, not just the last year debate. He's still, I think he's planning on running the presidential and vice presidential debates separately, just like everybody in ones on day zero, and that has nothing to do with his running for last year. So he's going to recuse himself from any discussion or vote on the actual debates that he will be participating in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Seeing no other requests for amendments to the agenda, we'll proceed to orders of the day. And we're now on 10 minutes, Mr. Hagan, on pet and or young child memberships.
Okay, I will
Point of
move
order,
to
Mr.
add-
Sorry.
As a point of order, since we're continuing the policy manual amendment, should we not be continuing with the new business with previous notice first?
No, because the way we amended the agenda, we did not have this time.
Okay.
This time was not there. It's been added in, and my general practice is as we add in, I put them at the end of the queue based on the order in which they're added.
Understood.
Go ahead, Mr. Hagan, and 10 minutes.
Okay. I will move to add a subsection to policy manual, section 2.05, membership policy. Actually emailed this out last night. It says people may purchase a junior membership for young children or mascot membership for pets for $15. This program is designed for those incapable of signing the membership certification. Junior members and mascot members are entitled to no rights or benefits other than receiving a membership card.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to it?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think most of us knows how this eventually got started, but it seems like a lot of people, a lot of our members in social media are interested in buying a quasi-membership for their pets, so it seems like a fundraising opportunity that also does not skew the numbers of our sustaining members that would affect the convention delegates, regional reps, or the committee assignments.
One moment. So I have Mr. Goldstein, Dr. Lark, Mr. Longstreth, Mr. Smith. Did I take that in like a
before
I wasn't looking. So Mr. Smith, Mr. Goldstein, Dr. Lark, Mr. Longstreth, Ms. Matson, Ms. Bilyeu, Mr. Fishman. The sound was a little low. So Mr. Smith, go ahead.
I really like the proposal. I think it's a great idea. My only concern is at what age do we allow people to decide they can sign the NAP pledge on the website? Because it's not addressed in there, right? It just says kids. So I know that we've had young kids at national even that were delegates that were old enough to understand what that pledge meant and become members. So, I mean, at what point do we allow them to be involved in our process if they were to buy a membership?
Is that a question or just a concern?
I mean, that's my only concern with the language, the current language is.
Okay. I'm just trying to, are you asking him to respond?
Sure, yeah.
Or
if he could, that'd be great.
Okay. Dr. Lark, is this a point of order?
That's a bylaw issue, because delegates to our national convention they have to be members either of the national party or a state party. State party criteria would govern something like that.
True.
And the Libertarian Party of Oregon, for example, had members who were children. So that's actually a bylaws issue.
So, I think that does sound like the right answer. The answer is that this proposal doesn't specify who fits into the junior membership versus who is buying a normal sustaining membership. Sure. There isn't an age line. It does not exist at this time.
Okay.
So the proposal doesn't clear it up, but it also doesn't change the fact that there isn't one. Mr. Goldstein.
I've got a question, and then I'm going to make an motion. Mr. Kraus, what's it cost us to process a membership card?
Couple bucks.
Okay, so $15, at least we're not losing money on it, right?
We're not going to lose money.
Probably net about 10-ish.
I move to amend the motion to substitute the word auxiliary for junior membership, and there's also not anything mentioned in there about a mascot member, so I move to delete those words and just make this an auxiliary membership for both young children and for pets.
I'll second.
I'll ask for the second once I'm sure that the amendment's clear.
Okay. I just wanted to substitute the word auxiliary for junior. And strike the word mascot.
So it would be, sorry, I gotta pull up the language to see it.
An auxiliary membership for young children or for pets.
Right.
Okay, so
No, he just sent.
I'm understanding the amendment.
And I'm having problems.
I believe the amendment, as I heard it, will also change junior and mascot in the third sentence of the amendment. So it'll say auxiliary members are entitled to no rights nor benefits other than receiving a membership card. Okay.
That's fine too.
I
I'm not
believe
clear.
that's why we're doing this.
Okay.
So his amendment would strike junior, replace it with auxiliary, and strike or a mascot membership.
Okay.
Sorry, strike a mascot membership. And in the third sentence would strike junior, replace it with auxiliary, and strike and mascot members. Got it? It's been seconded by Mr. Longstreth. Would you like to speak to it?
I think junior membership implies some kind of membership rights, even though clearly the motion states that they're not there. And auxiliary is just something that's an add-on to an organization.
Okay. That's the amendment. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the amendment, either for or against?
I want to be on when we have the main motion back.
I've got a whole list of people.
Thank you.
I'm checking to see if anyone wants to speak to the amendment. No one wants to speak to the amendment.
Mr. Nguyen.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Nguyen, I did not see you. If there's not objection, Mr. Nguyen.
I'm in support of the amendment. I think the simpler language we keep and the less tiers we introduce, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Anyone else who wants to speak on the amendment? Ms. Mattson?
So is it still called auxiliary membership? Or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the last sentence should be entitled to no rights or benefits rather than more?
That's beyond me.
I
think you were correct.
It's
neither nor, but
this is a stylistic issue, and I don't think either are grammatically incorrect. I mean,
I don't want to spend too much time
on anything else on the amendment? Ms. Bilyeu and Mr. Hewitt.
If it's going to be considered an auxiliary membership, does it have to be then attached to a regular membership? Or can someone buy an auxiliary one only and then themselves never be?
To answer a question, and this is actually a question that relates somewhat to Tara's work and just how we account for things internally, all the reports have you have the sustaining members, but then you have donors, right? There are people that give us money that they're not part of the cult. They just give us the money. What this would do is essentially it would create a card of sorts for those people. So somebody could be an auxiliary member for themselves, get a little card that says I'm an auxiliary member, never sign the pledge, never, they have a card, so I guess they say they're card carrying because they carry a card. But that's how I interpret what would happen. Does that answer your question? I'm just checking to make sure I answered your question.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hewitt?
Well, this isn't dramatic, but semantically speaking, your job has been described as herding cats several times, so aren't felines already included?
Existential problems are too early for not enough coffee. Are there any other people who wish to speak to the amendment? Are we ready to proceed to a vote on the amendment?
I was going to say one thing. I just think this is kind of a fun, gimmicky thing, and I think it's great. I just think mascot and junior member sounds better than auxiliary member.
Okay.
That's just me.
That's all right. I will go to hands for this. So all in favor of Mr. Goldstein's amendment, which would replace junior and mascot with auxiliary, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 to 7, the amendment passes. So now the amended motion is auxiliary membership, but otherwise the same. As I recall on deck, I had after Mr. Goldstein, I believe I had, is it Longstreth Lark or Lark Longstreth?
Mr. Longstreth got his hand up slightly before I.
Longstreth Lark, and then it was Bilyeu, Matson, and then we'll go Van Horn and Adams. And Harlow, sorry. Where were you in that?
I have no idea, but
Okay.
I'd been like...
We'll get there. Mr. Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, folks, we've got, obviously this is an issue of some importance because it's come before us. It's a fun little way for us to get a little bit more funding while solving the issue or potential issue of people who have not signed the pledge, or pets who have not signed their pledge, or people signing up people that, affecting delegate numbers basically. So this is a potential solution to the delegate number question. So I urge support on that. Additionally, there is an audience for pet merchandise, right? So I have committed that if the LP can add a dog collar that has the LP logo on it, I'll be one of the first to sign up. And if we have an auxiliary membership that allows this sort of thing to happen, that we can tie into this, and it brings additional sort of merchandise to our store, why wouldn't we look at this? It doesn't hurt us in any way whatsoever, and it's just a fun thing, and it doesn't hurt our delegates. As far as the age thing goes, again, that's a state's issue, but I also want to point out that ultimately, if somebody views themselves as conscious and able to make that decision, and they're 12 years old and they choose to sign up as a national affiliate, and they sign the pledge and everything else, then they already can do that, or 10 years old, or whatever that age limit is. So it really, that shouldn't be so much of one of our concerns. So with that, I think that this is a fun, new, innovative sort of program, and I think that we should very seriously consider it. And if it goes nowhere, then it goes nowhere. But if it goes somewhere, hey, maybe we get a couple extra $100.
Time is adjourned.
Time has expired. Is there a motion to extend?
Yes,
For how long?
10 minutes.
Is a motion to extend? Some objection to 10. Is there a motion to extend for 5?
Yes.
Is there
I have information, Mr. Chair, how many people are on the speakers list?
Just a lot.
about 6?
All right, well, I'll withdraw my objection.
There's no objection to 5 that I hear. Will be extended for 5 minutes. I believe Dr. Lark.
Yes, the point I was going to raise was actually taken care of by virtue of the event.
Okay. Ms. Bilyeu?
Yeah, so I see the way this is worded, people may purchase these auxiliary memberships, but there's nothing here that says they have to. So are we prohibiting them then from purchasing an actual membership for their animals and their children? And if we're not, what's the point of this? Why don't we just go ahead and get the $25 instead of the $15?
Agreed.
delegate issue is the issue. And that this does not keep them from doing that.
It does not keep them from doing
It
what?
doesn't keep people from signing up their animals and then affecting delegate counts.
I'm sorry.
Right?
I'm trying to understand.
I'm saying they can still physically go do it. There's no.
This does not prohibit someone from filling out the form, checking all the boxes and saying that they are an individual who is competent to make a political campaign contribution and agrees with the statement of, or the non-aggression pledge, and checks the box and submits the money. And if they submit the money and they check the box, then we take the money.
Right. Which is my point. If they can still do that, this doesn't change whether they're going to do that or not. Only this is going to give them a cheaper option.
Well, if they get the cheaper option, then they don't get put into the delegate allocation queue. If they take the cheaper option, they do not get a membership, a sustaining membership that counts for that delegate allocation.
Okay, so is that $10 difference? Now, how do we weigh that $10 difference that we're now not getting for that animal versus the potential delegate?
Mr. Kraus?
change? So, for example, we had a donor who paid for 3 quote-unquote memberships that were obviously for their pets. I recorded that as a $75 donation. They will get a nice little thank you letter for $75 donation, and that's it. They did get 3 new memberships for their pets because it was obvious what that was. You know, and that's how we're currently handling it. If we have this program, I assume this donor would have gone online and paid $50 so that she
$45.
Or he could have a card with their pet's name on it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Because it was 3 pets, right?
If we're aware of it, we're going to fix the problem internally.
Okay.
But your way, you were getting $75. This way, we only get 45.
Not. It doesn't always make economic sense to solve problems. Sometimes it makes economic sense not to solve problems. But that's just general wisdom for life. I have Ms. Matson, Ms. Harlos, I have Mr. Merced at the table, and I had, I believe, Ms. Adams not at the tables. And Ms. Van Horn, were you in there or not in there? Ms. Van Horn, were you on deck or not on deck?
Yes.
Okay, and then Ms. Van Horn. Matson, Harlos, Van Horn, Merced, then Adams, if we still have time. Go ahead.
So, like Mr. Wayne, I was upset that people would fill out, I am a U.S. citizen, and I certified it, yada yada, for an entity that clearly can't do that. But we are disincentivize that, okay? Give them some alternate path so they can still have a little fun, and it may, you can't put up a physical prohibition. You know, we don't know all the names of everybody's pet. I can go pick 30 goldfish, and you guys don't know what I name them. And you know, you can't put up a prohibition wall because we just don't have the info. So just give them something they can do to reduce the chances that they do something fraudulent and mess with our numbers. Obviously, you know, we'll watch for things that we know are not valid. But beyond that, is this intended to be a one-time purchase, or is it something that you would have renewed every year? Because as it's written, it looks like a one-time purchase, and maybe that's
Mr. Kraus.
I've talked briefly with Dan and very little with Tara about this, but the way I envision this is just like kind of when you sign up for a package for the convention and there is a space that says what name do you want on your card. And that name can be completely different than the donor's name. And so that's the name that gets printed on the card. We're not creating a separate record, in my opinion, in Razor's Edge, in the database for this fictitious person. It's strictly a name that's going to go on a card.
But we could give them a new card every year. We could sell them a new card every year.
You wouldn't track expirations with this.
So that is actually outside the scope of the motion itself, because that goes into the implementation at the office level. So we might track expirations if we think that that would cause us to get more marginal revenue because, you know, Fluffy needs a new card every year. Of course Fluffy does. We're in the time out of time, but I'm happy to answer your question.
This, I just want to make sure, this provision will not change sustaining members.
It will not.
It will not change delegate.
It does not affect anything. I read the bylaws while you all were talking, we're not stepping on anything we're not allowed to step on. We are out of
I
time.
move to extend for 5 minutes so that the persons who still wish to talk.
There's been a motion to extend to hear from the people who were previously recognized. Just FYI, it was Ms. Harlos, Mr. Merced, Ms. Van Horn, and Ms. Adams not at the table. Is there objection to extending to hear from those people?
Object.
There is an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. I will vote in the affirmative. That is 2/3. Go ahead, Ms. Harlos.
I have no problem with doing this.
Quickly, of course.
Of course, for pets. I have a huge problem for us interfering in the idea of deciding when children can or cannot. That's a parental thing, and I think we should leave it entirely to parents. It's not entirely a state thing, because some states say only national members can be national delegates, and that puts it squarely back in our court. I think the idea of when is a child old enough, not old enough. I think you leave this strictly to the parents' discretion, and if they think they can sign up whatever age, let them do that. We are interfering way too much in family relations.
Ms. Harlos?
I'm moving to amend to strike the children.
Well, but we're already just dealing with auxiliary membership.
Right, auxiliary membership for pets.
Oh, you moved to strike young children.
Yes.
Sounds abusive.
Wait, well, hey. So it's a motion to amend to strike young children. So it would read as amended. People may purchase an auxiliary membership for pets.
Yes.
Okay. And then that would be the only change. That would be this amendment. Is there a second for that amendment? There's a second from Mr. Smith for that amendment. Would anyone like to speak against? I have to raise a point of order that we extended time to hear from the people who hadn't been heard from. One of the people who hadn't been heard from raised an amendment that creates a different topic, that then created a whole list of people who now want to be heard from to speak against the amendment. I am not sure it is in order for us to have that debate. I'm not sure. Dr. Lark, what do you think?
I think it is in order.
Okay, if Dr. Lark thinks it's in order, I'm willing to push the I believe button. Phillips, what's up? Phillips, Mattson, Olson, Goldstein, Merced, Longstreth, and potentially Adams. Mr. Phillips.
We already answered this question. People aren't required to do this. This just gives them an option if they want to say buy one for a baby or something. If they want to do it, if they want to buy a regular membership, they still can. So we've already addressed that question. So this amendment's not necessary.
Mattson.
Yeah, well, I don't see in what way we're interfering with anything. We're not saying where the lines are, we're not drawing the lines, it's just, if they're incapable, you can buy this, and if you think they're capable, then, the other option exists. But I don't think we're in any way interfering in those decisions.
Olson.
I think the idea of an auxiliary membership for children or pets is just kind of, it's a cute fundraising idea, but I would prefer it to just be a pet membership and take children out of it. Because, like my son, who's only 8, is very proud to be a libertarian and understands what it means. And I want him to have a real membership. And I understand I
buy a real membership for him. But I just think this is a better fundraising tool for pets, not children.
Merced Goldstein or Goldstein Merced on?
Mine's quick.
Go ahead.
Okay, one, as everyone said, it doesn't actually change whether you can buy a membership for your kid. But at the end of the day, really, it's just allows us to actually have a thing we can market as because if we were to sit there and do a big marketing campaign, send up your kids for a sustaining membership, that would probably, controversy, delegate discussion, stuff like that. But this, we can actually say, hey, go get your kid a card, go get your pet a card. We can actually market it. That's the big benefit of this. We have something we can promote.
Mr. Goldstein.
My point's already been made. This does not preclude anybody from buying regular membership.
Did I forget anyone else at the table who wanted to speak?
On the amendment?
On the amendment. Longstreth, and then, assuming that's everyone at the table, we'll go to Ms. Adams if there's no objection. Mr. Longstreth.
So I echo Phillips, Mattson, and Merced on this. It's one of those things, there's still an option. I don't view, if this were to pass with children included, I don't view it as violating that discussion between parents and their children, or children themselves, if they're of an age and conscious decision, say an 8-year-old, if they choose to become a sustaining member, then that is their prerogative to do so. I understand the concern of lumping children and pets together, but I also understand that there are members who would like to be able to say, since my child was born, they've been a member of some type of this party their entire lives. And ultimately, that child will eventually become of age and can make their own decisions and sign their own pledge if they want to and that sort of thing. I think it is just a cutesy, fun way for us to put something else out there and maybe collect an extra couple of bucks. I mean, that's honestly how I think we need to think about it, and let parents, when it comes to sustaining membership and signing up for real membership, have that discussion with their child or with state leaders or what have you, in order to help that child make that decision. But an auxiliary membership, it's basically a membership in honorary of this person or this pet or what have you, and so I will not be supporting the amendment.
Okay. Ms. Adams, and then without objection. We're out of time.
I would move to extend for 1 minute to hear from Ms. Adams only.
Okay. There's a motion to extend to hear from Ms. Adams for 1 minute. No, is there objection? No objection. Ms. Adams.
So like I get it, and I get both sides of this argument. I get why we're even talking about doing this, even though I think it's a huge waste of time to even have this conversation. Leave the memberships like they are. Who cares if somebody registers a herd of cows? Who cares? The cows aren't showing up to vote. They're just not. And if Wyoming gets 2 extra delegate seats because of it, props to Wyoming for outworking everybody else. Like, seriously. At the same time, do not lump my child in with somebody's pet. Don't.
So we're out of time. Ms. DeSisto had something she wanted to add to the conversation. Is there objection to hearing? Ms. DeSisto?
I don't have a massive opinion on this. I think all fundraising is great. However, using children to fundraise, sending out appeals to target children is something that is very questionable, whereas legally questionable if we are putting pictures up of children that are going out to our national database. Pets, not so much. I think we could do a lot of great appeals working with pets, but with children, I would be very skeptical about how we would advertise for this and be inclusive about it.
Thank you. Mr. Fishman, is this necessary?
Very brief. There has to be consideration of what is the legal obligation upon the party to ensure who is an actual member. Are we doing our due diligence when we ask people, is this person an American citizen, etc.?
Our legal obligation, just so everybody's clear, our treasurer is required to not knowingly take any contribution from someone who is not an FEC eligible contributor. That is our legal obligation, and we will follow that legal obligation to the letter, which may not always be to the spirit. We are out of time. We will, without an extension, proceed to orders of the day, which will be a vote on the Harlos amendment, followed by a vote on the underlying motion, however it ends up being. That's what will happen without anyone being recognized to extend time. Ms. Mattson, is that the reason you seek to be recognized?
Right, so I want to move to extend for 2 minutes so I can ask a question about how this policy, in 2.05.2.
The amendment or the underlying motion?
Fair point, it is on the main motion rather than the amendment.
At the point after we resolve the amendment, you will raise a point of order about whether or not the amendment will be in order or in conflict with that policy manual. And I will respond to that point of order because that takes precedence over the vote. So there is not a need to extend time for it. It's required. At least that's what my back of the envelope tells me.
Well, we can couch it as a point of order, I just don't.
But can we do that? Can we do that after the amendment?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So we'll move to a vote on the amendment. The Harlos amendment is to strike the young children so that it would only apply to pets. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any question about the amendment? A yes, we'll adopt the Harlos amendment to be part of the main motion. A no will be to leave it as children or pets.
So we have to take out 4 young children or.
Correct. All in favor of the Harlos amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I will vote against the Harlos amendment. It fails. We will now proceed to a vote.
Sorry, we can vote on that?
Huh?
Go back to the last one.
We go back to the underlying motion, which is now it is auxiliary membership for young children or pets. Ms. Mattson, did you have a question about whether or not that motion conflicts with another policy manual provision?
Yeah, so the question is how it impacts it. So in section 2.05.2, this is where we have the association levels, chairman circle, fourth benefactor, all those things. And down at the bottom, it says contribution levels. So the contributions are different from purchases.
Right.
Buy a t-shirt, it doesn't extend your membership.
Correct.
Right? But then contribution levels are based on transfers of cash or its equivalent where there is no exchange of goods, services, or quid pro quo, such as in the case of convention package sales. We're not selling them a thing, so if someone puts in $15 for their pet, does it count towards their personal membership contribution levels? We're not giving them a thing in exchange.
Yes, it is styled as a donation. It is not the card. The card is not a thing of value in the way that the FEC thinks about it, in the way that a T-shirt would be. The card is an acknowledgement. Acknowledgements are not considered to be of meaningful value unless they rise to the level of like big tchotchkes. So I don't believe it conflicts. Does that answer your question?
Well, so just the implication of that is they can put in $15, buy something for their pet. They don't have to put in another $10 in their sustaining.
No, they would have to do another $10 to be a sustaining member for the year, but that would make them a sustaining member because we would have received more than $25 from them in the calendar year, even if they also got an auxiliary membership card for their pet. You could theoretically game the system that way.
Do a
Yes.
life membership, get a herd of cats.
But that's the answer to the question. I don't believe there's any point of order problem. But that answers the question. That answers the question. And since we don't have time, we're not going to engage in debate. And I don't think it's in order. If you are moving to table it, you should look around the room first.
I can't rephrase it. I'll move to extend 30 seconds for a motion to postpone indefinitely so that we can sort that out and maybe try to avoid that.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to extend for 30 seconds to allow a motion to postpone this item indefinitely. Is there objection?
Yes.
There's objection. All in favor of extending time for that purpose, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will not extend time for that purpose.
What was the first count?
7 to 6.
Thank you.
We'll move to a vote on the underlying motion. We can have this be roll call if you want, or we could do it with hands.
I think.
Is there a request for roll call?
Yes.
Okay. It'll be a roll call vote. What was that?
Maybe hear the.
Yes.
I thought we still had people on deck that hadn't been heard from.
We are out of time, and no one wants to extend.
Okay, I didn't realize that the vote was for that, sorry.
No, we're out of time.
So this is a vote on the main.
The main motion. Do you have the marked up language where I can just read it? Because otherwise I have to
Well, I
do
gotta
the
go to
edits in my head.
Well, you have to do the edits in your head.
Okay, I'll do the
because-
edits in my head. So, as amended, as I recall it, it would say people may purchase an auxiliary membership for young children or pets for $15. This program is designed for those incapable of signing the membership certification. Auxiliary members are entitled to no rights nor benefits other than receiving a membership card.
Correct.
Does everyone understand the motion? We'll proceed to the roll call.
Okay. Second. Ms. Bilyeu?
No.
Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Aye.
Mr. Goldstein?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
I will vote no. Dr. Olson?
No.
Dr. Lark?
Abstain.
Mr. Longstreth?
Pass.
Ms. Matson?
No.
Mr. Merced?
Yes.
Mr. Nikela?
I vote aye.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Redpath?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Van Horn?
Yes.
The pass was Mr. Longstreth.
Abstain.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 10 yes, 4 no, 2 abstentions. Would you like to vote?
No, thank you. It passes. All right. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Ford, 10 minutes on national debate participation.
Thank you, Mr. Shar. For those of you who haven't yet, I think I've met everybody at this point. My name is Pat Ford. I'm from Rhode Island. I am the alternate for Region 8, filling in for Mr. O'Donnell. I'm in the earliest stages of creating a working group to foster Libertarian Party participation in the national presidential debates. I'd like to stipulate a few things. The primary objective of a political party is to create a framework and an environment for the election of libertarians. Americans unfortunately view participation in national presidential debates as a litmus test, if you will, for the seriousness and the integrity and the legitimacy, if you will, of our participation in national elections. This group is not meant to preempt or be confused with continuing legal attempts to force participation, if you will, in the national debates. I am also not so naive as to expect some form of instant gratification. In all probability, this will be a prolonged multi-year process that will require the cooperation of a variety of different groups within the Libertarian Party. As importantly, I'm not asking for any money. What I seek is the imprimatur of the Libertarian Party and the recognition that this is a process to be engaged in at the national level and not wait for every July or August in the quadrennial fourth year post-nomination of a candidate. I see two methods to be engaged in at some point simultaneously in pursuing participation. Using our vast social independent media to educate the public as to the origins, the mechanics, the personalities, the frailties, and the failures of the National Debate Commission. Number two, as importantly, work to change the fundamental conversation. Currently, the conversation I had with Mr. Fishman, the argument is, did Gary Johnson get 15%, get 16%? We need to change that because that's a fluctuating total based on a moment in time. It's not reflective of the importance of our movement or the importance of other movements nationally in the conversation. So we need to work to get people to understand that we're not polling on the individual prospect of the relevance of that candidate, but this relevance in the scope of the national participation of our ideology and why it's important to Americans to have a place at the table. So what I'm looking for, in a sense, is not an approval per se, not to be part of the official Libertarian Party framework, but a recognition that this is an important process that needs to start literally last week. These debates commence in just a mere few months, but that also to foster, if you will, participation from a variety of the working groups, the viewpoints, the perspectives of a variety of candidates, movements, caucuses within the party.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, there is too much chatter in the back, please. I'm having trouble hearing.
And then is there a particular motion you're moving?
No, I'm not. I'm looking to foster conversation within this 10 minutes and also to bring to the party's attention so that this afternoon, this evening, in the coming weeks and days, people will reach out to me and say, I think you've got a great idea there. How do we actually make it happen? B, specifically, lend one's support. Many of us are involved in national, whether it be national elections, if you will, and supporting candidates. Some of us are running for internal national office, and I realize that would probably, there's a bunch of us who are not so much involved in those processes, and I look to your support, I look to your input, and maybe a little bit of the herding of the cats, because it's my contention that this election, they're all critical, right? But particularly since we are looking to elect more of a homegrown libertarian, that seems to be the consensus approach of the candidates that we have in place, that it is critical that we find ways to bring together all of the people in the big tent so that we work for one common goal. Because if we do not, the ramifications for both the future of our movement, ballot access, and all the attending issues are critically at stake. And that's the purpose of as much to not only get into the debates at some point, whether it be this election cycle or the next, but to find mechanisms to bring people together, to work cooperatively, to advance the party and the movement.
Would anyone
I welcome your questions.
Anyone like to comment? Questions?
I don't understand. I don't understand what you're asking for, what you want us to do. This has to do with the national. This isn't internal party debates. These aren't pre-convention. These aren't debates in Austin.
I'm looking at the national debates.
Okay, so what do you want us to do? I don't get it. I don't understand what the ask is or what you propose that we do.
I'm looking for people to join with me in the effort and to get some sense of what the temperature is of the party itself. It's something that we've abandoned every 4 years. Clearly, obviously, serious legal action has been taken by a group of very well organized. Unfortunately, it's failed. And people that I speak to see no immediate remedy on a legal front. So we can continue to abandon and wait for the actual campaign, if you will, to start up in July, some sort of effort to get involved, or we can look at this as an institutional process that has to be started at some point and should be advocated for by a national party. I think it also promotes value for membership in the national party. We have to show to campaigns and to people who are not as intimate with the processes as we are here that there is value to the party. And part of that is helping getting people elected. And this is part of that.
Okay, I got Olson and then Carlos.
Sure.
So I think what I hear you saying is that you want to form like an ad hoc committee.
A working group, yeah.
Of people to address this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to lend my support and say I think that this is a much more important issue than dealing with pet memberships.
Ms. Harms?
Yeah, that is what I was kind of intuiting was the action that you were saying, that you kind of like we had the blockchain committee, which was an ad hoc committee for a special issue, that this would be an action committee. And in general, I would support that. In general, I think we need more of that because we need to focus on certain winnable issues. So I would ask that maybe you think about some wording to form a committee and bring it to an email vote, perhaps, where we would have a committee, since you didn't really have a motion yet in mind.
Okay, one try.
So to Ms. Carlos's point, I think that forming a motion to get a more permanent, if you will, ad hoc committee would be the next step. I think what Mr. Ford is trying to do, and I've talked with him about some of this, is to, amongst us on the LNC, who would be interested in helping him form the mission and goals and that sort of thing, to add it as a ad hoc committee. It sounds like he is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like he is willing to do the work to help move in that direction, but he doesn't want this to be his baby. He wants to get the input from other LNC members. And so with that in mind, if I believe, again, if I'm understanding Mr. Ford correctly, that if you're interested in helping him do this and write the language and come up with a mission statement for this ad hoc committee, that you would talk with him and help him write that so that way it can be presented hopefully in Austin and be ready to go for our next incarnation of this body.
Dr. Locke?
Yeah, there's a vast amount of institutional knowledge in this room that I could never begin to approach. I seek, if you will, not only just a moral support, but also input from folks as to what has worked and what has failed in the past over a variety of elections. You know, ranging back to the very beginning of this national debate that's been foisted upon us by the duopoly. We need to start this as soon as possible. I would actually look to an email motion to create this working group per se, because I think it needs to happen now.
I would be happy to share with you the emails or the mails that I've sent out to various agencies related to debates that I've had moderate success with.
Right.
So, I don't have a whole lot of time spent on it. I will happily share this with you.
Great, thank you.
Any further comment or questions? With that, we'll wrap up this agenda item. And next we have 20 minutes for policy manual discussion, or policy manual changes.
No, is it immediate?
Oh no, the debate on the website, Longstreth. Mr. Longstreth? Your 2 minutes.
Yes, so thank you. I don't know if you all saw, as we came in this morning, the LP Georgia presidential debate has now been posted. It is quite professional looking. Are there some quality issues that maybe could continue to be improved upon? Absolutely. But it is a standard of quality that I believe would be appropriate media for our website. Now that said, I understand that there are some concerns about not all candidates participated in that debate, and we don't want to put forward any sort of us pushing a certain candidate or candidates. However, because I believe it's quality and because I believe our membership and other people would be interested in easily finding this debate, and I do not believe that it tarnishes our brand, I would like to move to include the LP Georgia debate as media on our website in order to give people a more informed opinion of our presidential candidates.
There's a second from Mr. Phillips. Do you need to speak to it anymore?
I believe I already have. Thank you.
Could you please give me the wording again?
Point of information.
Yes, okay, so you say not all the candidates participated in this, and I just saw a few seconds, and I didn't hear any audio when I walked in here today. So first of all, how many candidates have declared in some formal way?
54, I think.
54 or 47. Numbers.
A few dozen.
Numbers that I've seen that are active, that I've seen them somewhere, I've seen them do something, is probably on the order of somewhere between 11 and 15.
Okay, how many are in this debate?
There were several people that attended. I was not personally there. Ms. Nikhil, I believe you said you were at the LP Georgia debate. If it is okay with the chair, do you know how many presidential candidates participated?
Okay. Right, the secretary needed your wording.
Yeah.
I'm writing it out.
Okay. Mr. Goldstein.
I repeat my opposition to this motion. Our bylaws very clearly state that we're not to give preferential treatment to any presidential candidate before the nomination is concluded. And I think just by helter-skelter, whoever shows up at these state debates and who doesn't, kind of says that we're showing favoritism to the ones that are showing up at these debates. And I'm going to vote against this motion.
Ms. Adams.
I disagree that it shows preference. The candidates all have the opportunity to attend these debates. It's their choice. If they choose not to attend, I don't believe that that adds any additional burden or responsibility to this body.
You're not getting out of order to do a point of inquiry. So, Dr. Olson, Mr. Hagan, Mr. Ford. It is not. That's a common misconception.
Well, put a dunce cap on me and put me in the corner.
Oh, don't tempt me.
I'll just put you in the order of people to be recognized. That'll be sufficient.
I'm on Amazon.
Dr. Olson.
I agree with Ms. Adams, and I will be supporting this motion. The presidential candidates know that they have an opportunity to speak to delegates when they go to these state conventions. They know that these debates are being recorded. Some of the state conventions have different rules and requirements as to getting into the debates. I think this is a good way for us to promote our candidates to the public.
Mr. Hagan.
So this may be a point of inquiry, maybe that Mr. Redpath be asking, what were the requirements to get into this debate?
Mr. Thrasher, do you have the answer to that?
I do, in that I believe it was show up.
It was B at the Libertarian Party of Georgia convention.
Okay.
Still not privileged. We'll get there. Mr. Ford. We'd already been to Mr. Phillips. I have Mr. Red. Huh? I have not been to you. Okay, then Mr. Ford, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Redpath, Ms. Harlos, and then potentially people from the gallery.
Is it appropriate for me to ask for Mr. Thrasher to give me the opportunity to speak at this moment?
You can be recognized for that purpose, and if there's no objection, Mr. Thrasher.
Thank you. So, first and foremost, I would like to just give a shout out to John McCaskey, Amanda Collins, and the 3L Productions team that did the video on this debate. The video is impeccable. I have some concerns with the quality of the audio, and unfortunately, that was something that 3L Productions did not have any say-so over. And saying this is someone whose candidate did, frankly, very, very well in this debate, I have concerns that this particular debate, the audio quality may not be up to the standard of the law on television website. I hope that there is a consensus that future debates, professionally produced, with the sufficient quality, might be placed on the website. This particular one, as I said, the video is great, the audio, not so much.
Mr. Phillips.
This isn't just an opportunity to promote our candidates. It's an opportunity to promote cooperation with our state governments. They're putting on these debates. It lets us show a little bit of support for the efforts that they are putting in. And as a previous candidate who was unable to speak on these things before, personally, I think we should have been doing this much earlier. So I will be supporting this.
Mr. Redpath?
Yeah, I'm going to talk now, Mr. Chairman. Were there any other debates that weekend that other candidates were at? I mean, I'm just wondering if your point, Ms. Adams, is certainly valid. If there were no other debates going on at other state conventions, was this the sole presidential debate that weekend?
That weekend, yeah. Of the candidates that have been out there, only Mr. Armstrong was on this debate. I think he was sick then. He was in California. All right, so one of them was in California.
But no other debates anywhere else that weekend. That was the only debate that
I
weekend.
just heard California.
No, he was in California.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
As an event.
All right. I believe I was next to Ms. Harlos.
Whether we like it or not, this is giving preferential treatment because there's more declared candidates. Just because they didn't show up to Georgia, you never know. They could have some weird superstition that they don't go beyond some certain, line on the map. We don't allow preferential treatment, period, end of story. But I have a potential solution to this is that in our community collaborative wiki, anyone can post any debate. And we have a good page rank and people looking for our candidates can go there. I think every and all debate should be just stuck on Lpedia. It's done by people other than the party. It's done by volunteers. Anyone can do it. We have then the distance from it that we're not showing preferential treatment. Let's use that resource for that thing so that we don't get into these messes.
Was Lark or Mattson first?
No.
Dr. Lark, then Ms. Mattson. Dr. Lark first.
My feeling is that I feel that there is, we're basically My feeling is that we should have perhaps a section of our website where essentially candidates can post links to whatever they damn well please. Let people go where they want. That means any candidate can post whatever they choose. Any state party can post debates. Basically, these are libertarian events. We have a set of links. People can go where they please.
That's what LPD is for.
Ms. Matson?
Well, I think as soon as we put one up, every other state that has one is gonna demand that theirs go up also. I think it kind of opens the floodgates, and I would like to request to hear from Mr. Starr. Do you have a question or comment?
Is there objection to hearing from Mr. Starr?
I object until everyone at the table.
There's an objection. All in favor of hearing from Mr. Starr, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is in favor?
Oh, it's in favor?
It is.
Oh, never mind, I'm confused.
Okay, opposed?
Whatever, yeah.
Mr. Starr, go ahead.
Thank you. I am a little concerned about showing preference to candidates or even to no candidate at all, since no is an option on our ballot. But if you are going to put debates on the website, I think that decision should be on a perspective basis, rather than saying we're selecting some debate that took place in the past to put on. It seems unfair to candidates for them to learn way after the fact that, oh, it's going to be on the LP website. I'm sure some candidates may have decided to have been there had they known in advance it was going to be on the LP website. So at the very least, don't do it retroactively, only do it prospectively.
Okay. I think I had Mr. Longstreth, were you in?
We're out of time.
Yes.
We are out of time.
Extend for 5 minutes.
So motion to extend for 5. Is there objection to extending for 5? Hearing no objection, we'll extend for 5. I have Mr. Longstreth. I believe Mr. Bishop Henchman, you've not spoken yet. Then Mr. Phillips. Then if there's no, and then Mr. Ford. Then if there's no objection, Mr. Wendt.
So I want to speak to the standards issue that's been raised. Folks, about 6 months ago at our summer meeting, I tried to form a brief ad hoc discussion committee where we could talk about standards. That way we could put out what video standards, audio standards, et cetera, that we wanted in order to include them on the website. That went absolutely nowhere. That we talked, I think, 2 emails back and forth, and then it died off. So it is not fair for us to continuously move the bar, or not even have a bar for our affiliates to decide can we meet the standards or not. At some point, we're going to have to put something up there, and if we get complaints that it's not up standard, then we at least have a baseline for standards, and we can start to improve from there. But this committee so far has not set any standards, and it's not fair for us to just keep kicking the ball down the road. Furthermore, this is not an issue of candidates to me. I understand that perspective. This is an issue of affiliates. The affiliates decided to put on a debate. The affiliate has shared this and has put it out there, and we would be supporting the affiliate. And I would be okay with supporting any affiliate that comes up with a somewhat professional looking sort of debate and putting it on there. Regardless of what their standards are for how they include people in the debates, that is on them. But this is an affiliate support issue, and I want us to keep that in mind. Yes, it features our candidates, but at the same time, if somebody came to me and said, hey, here's a video of my entire convention and it's quality video, I would be very happy with us hosting that as well. I think LPedia is a fantastic option. I think it should be there too. But not everybody knows about LPedia. It's very much an inside baseball sort of website. I think that a lot of people, when they're starting to flirt with the idea of the party, they're not going to LPedia most of the time first. They're looking up Libertarian Party, and the first hit on Google is lp.org. And that is where this should be featured. Let's feature it in both places. I see value in all. However, this is a little bit of a situation where I think that we really should have it on the website, start to collect feedback from our membership, start to establish more standards, and start to really professionalize as an organization where we support our affiliates and we are open to sharing our candidates with the world.
Mr. Bishop Henchman.
Mr. Fishman, we may not have criteria, but I think Mr. Fishman has, on our behalf, acting as staff, been communicating certain professional standards that he thinks are important in debates: lighting, sound, set decoration. I think whatever your standards may be, the Georgia debate did meet them. I just listened to the audio a little bit. It's a little like amphitheater echoey, not like conversational audio, but I think that's fine. They did invite all of the candidates, all but one of whom who's active did participate. Quality of Policy, since they posted it yesterday, they've gotten 347 views even without it being on our website. So, you know, I get we don't want to go back in time and come up with new, you know, retroactively do this, but whatever the standards we could have come up with, I think they met them. I think other state parties that use them would make sense. So I'll be supportive.
Phillips, Ford, Harlos, Went
To address Mr.
on the
Starr's
table.
concern, as somebody who was invited to that debate, we were informed that every candidate that was invited was informed that it was going to be recorded potentially to be put out there. So I don't feel like that has any bearing on that. You wouldn't have known that, so I'll answer your question. I also agree, obviously, I said earlier with Mr. Longstreth on it being affiliate support. As to address the candidate issue, we're behind the 8 ball with our candidates. I mean, I'm not saying anything against our candidates. What I'm saying is the Democrats and the Republicans have a lot more media opportunity than we do. And so not seizing every opportunity we have is handicapping our candidates.
Mr. Ford?
I'll pass, please.
Ms. Harlos, and then Mr. Went without objection.
I have a point of parliamentary inquiry for the chair in addition to my debate point. Should I ask my inquiry first?
Inquiry first.
If I believe that this is against the policy manual, is it appropriate to raise a point of order against the consideration of the motion at all?
It would be appropriate to raise the point of order.
Okay.
Might have been appropriate to raise it earlier, but.
I didn't even, I was getting a bit confused.
Go ahead.
But the debate point, I'd raised
Well,
my hand for, can I do that first?
Do the point of order before the debate, because if it's out of order, we don't need the debate.
Yeah, I'm raising a point of order that we're simply not allowed to do this under the policy manual.
Specific section and wording that you think is in
Okay.
conflict.
I will have to pull that up for you.
Well, then your point of order is not well formed yet.
Then may I make my
You
debate point?
can do your debate, go ahead.
If the issue is that Lpedia is too inside baseball, then let's have a page inviting everybody to stick their stuff on Lpedia. Make that because there are no, we wipe our hands of all that kind of stuff there. Advertise Lpedia more, send people there.
All right. Mr. Went, without objection.
So my look on this is that I'm in a state that's fairly low, but the affiliates are starting to outpace this committee. The affiliates are starting to do more than this commission, and we should be celebrating that. We should be acknowledging that. We should be a party together. The other points that you have is that I want to make is that you need to make everything for the media easy. You don't want to push them to 3 websites. You want to give them an entire press release that says exactly what you want them to say. And if we want the media to have exposure to our candidates, we need to feature the most candidates we can without issuing preferential treatment. So I think that putting the well-formed debate on the LP website is the best call.
Point of order.
I will address the point of order, even though time has expired. I will resolve the point of order. Go ahead.
So now to quote the specific policy manual section is under 2.08 political campaigns, subsection 2, limitations on party support for public office. Party resources shall not be used to provide information or services for any candidate for public office prior to nomination unless such information or services are available and announced on an equal basis to all libertarians who have declared they are seeking that nomination. Such information or services are generally available and announced to all party members, or the service or candidate has been approved by the state chair. This has not been previously announced, and it's not available on an equal basis.
That was the argument about the point of order, the last 2 lines?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just double checking.
Yes, sorry, I didn't know
All right.
that was inappropriate.
No, it's not inappropriate. It was just, it blended together, and I was listening
that was my
carefully.
words and not the policy.
It's like that policy manual is pretty aggressive. Damn.
Damn it.
in response to the point of order, I find that the motion is in order. This debate was previously announced to all presidential candidates that were active by the Libertarian Party of Georgia, as well as to all party members who were, I mean, it was generally announced that this convention was going to happen and people could participate. There is no favoritism in showing a debate, and it is just a debate. It's not somebody saying so-and-so was the winner of the debate, or there's no editorial commentary. So there's no favoritism being shown to any of the participants, and it was available on an equal basis. That's the ruling. Yep, we'll go as quick as we can.
Well, I'm the aggressive policy manual.
I'm just pacing. Pacing's all I'm saying. That's my ruling. There's an appeal from the ruling of the chair. Ms. Harlos, you may speak to your appeal from the ruling of the chair.
Okay, I hadn't heard of this, and I'm a party member officer. This was not pre-announced by the national party. It may have been announced by the Libertarian Party of Georgia, but not announced by the national party to be given notice to all party members.
Okay.
And again, we're looking in the past again. And I would still argue on the whole equal basis thing, but just dealing with the one item that the chair brought up, it was not announced. It was never in an email blast to all of our party members. It was very localized.
Ms. Mattson.
In addition to what Ms. Harlow raised, I think to say that it's available on, the service is available on a basis really opens the door to having to put future ones on as well. They say, well, our state convention also let anybody participate. I think the equal basis would have to continue going forward so that it's not just this one instance. To argue that it is announced and available on a equal basis to all who have declared their seeking that nomination, I think we can't just limit it to one.
Phillips or Adams, which is first? Phillips, Adams.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being on an equal basis going forward. I'm totally okay with that. I'm totally okay with letting every state put on a debate, and if it's got good quality standards, we put it on the website. I'm totally okay with that.
Ms. Adams?
Yeah, I'm also gonna disagree that it wasn't made available to everyone and advertised to everyone, regardless of whether with the national party pushed the advertising or not. This convention was all over social media. It was promoted on every one of these candidates' pages. Every one of them shared it. Their combined reach of the announcement for this convention is far larger on social media than it would have been from our page.
Ray, I was going to say that this is a bit of a sticky point because there is a point of order. The point of order has been resolved. There is an appeal from the ruling of the chair. Appeals from the ruling of the chair are debatable, but we are technically without time right now.
Move to extend for 10 minutes.
I heard the motion to extend for 5 minutes because this ear's a lot better.
Yes.
Is there objection to extending for 5 minutes to discuss the appeal from the ruling of the chair? There is an objection. All in favor of extending for 5 minutes, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that 9? Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 9 over 6, not 2/3. No, we're probably going to be done with the argument for the appeal from the ruling of the chair.
What is the issue here on
I will unpack it all. So, I've ruled that the underlying motion, the one to put the Georgia debate on the National Party site, is in order and doesn't conflict with the policy manual. That ruling has been appealed by Ms. Harlos. So we will first move to a vote on the appeal from the ruling of the chair. I always get this confused.
Yes, sustains.
Yes, sustains. So a yes sustains the ruling of the chair, a no would rule that this entire motion's out of order, and then we could not proceed to a vote on it. Understood?
Roll call.
Those are always.
Please.
It's, yeah, roll call's fine. Roll call actually makes sense because it would have the effect of defeating the motion.
So is everyone clear on the motion? I can start?
I believe so. A yes vote sustains the ruling of the chair and allows us to proceed to a vote on the underlying motion. A no vote overturns the ruling of the chair and finds the motion to be out of order.
Ms. Van Horn,
Abstain.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Redpath,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, here.
Mr. Nikela.
Vote aye.
I'm sorry?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a real hard time with that. Mr. Merced,
Yes.
Ms. Mattson. Oops, 1 second. Mr. Longstreth.
Yes.
Hold on, my keyboard just did something really weird here. 1 second. Dr. Lark.
Nay.
Dr. Olson.
Yes.
I will vote no. Mr. Hagan.
Yes.
Mr. Goldstein.
No.
1 second again. I think I've got a mapping error on my things here. And Mr. Hagan, you said no?
No, I said yes.
I said yes.
Okay, and Mr. Goldstein was no. Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Aye.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Okay, it is 10 yeses, 5 noes, 1 abstention. Would the chair like to vote?
No, thank you. The ruling of the chair is upheld. We'll proceed to a vote on the underlying motion. That will also be roll call in whichever order is we're up to.
And can I
A yes vote would be to adopt the motion to post the Georgia debate on the Libertarian Party page. A no vote would be to not adopt that motion. Any questions before we proceed to the vote? Ms. Harlos, did you have a question before we proceed to the vote?
I just want a clarification on what we were voting on, and you took
And,
care of that.
yeah, hey, I'm getting here. We'll figure out how this chair thing works eventually. When you're ready.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Aye.
Mr. Goldstein?
No.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
I will vote no. Dr. Olson?
Yes.
Dr. Lark?
No. Nay.
Mr. Longstreth?
Yes.
Ms. Mattson?
No.
Mr. Merced?
Yes.
Mr. Nikela?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
No.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Redpath?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Van Horn?
Yes.
The vote is 11 yeses, 5 noes. Would the chair like to vote?
No, thank you. The motion passes. Orders of the day. Next item on the agenda is 20 minutes for policy manual changes.
Chairman, can we have a break at this point? I don't
Yeah,
know if
people
we
gotta
should
check out.
situation is, before we go into a 20-minute thing.
Okay.
20 minutes? That's optimistic.
How long of a recess would you like?
20 minutes.
I'm good at 10:30, back in at 10:30.
A 10-minute recess.
That's not gonna be
10 minutes.
enough for everybody.
Well, so this is the we can either have a recess that's long enough for people to go check out if they want to check out this early. However, and I'm not being overly optimistic, we could also power through after a short recess and be done in advance of, I mean,
What time is checkout?
11 o'clock.
You could call and extend them.
okay, then you would like the longer recess. If you'd like the longer recess, we can take the longer recess. What period of time do you think would be appropriate?
20 minutes.
Okay, so there's a motion for a recess until 10:41. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, we'll be in recess till 10:41.
I'm going to be, now that we're in recess, I'm going to be a prophet and make a prediction that the Libertarian Party of Michigan is going to have a hell of a debate that's going to get posted on our website.
Case by case right now. We don't have standards. That's the problem.
If I may, for the
I'm looking forward to the dildos and the naked men.
And I would say that's not special.
Well, I am asking right now,
Says
someone,
who?
I am asking someone right now to put a motion forward directing the executive director to establish production criteria for these on the website. Nothing about who, just about standards of production. That I feel like might eliminate issues with.
Oh no, I want that now. Because we are completely against our
I was
policy
asking for it
manuals.
6 months ago when
I
nobody was
am
interested,
looking
and now all of a
forward
sudden
to the
everybody is.
Libertarian Party of
I was
Michigan
interested.
debate.
I just want to put that out there.
After the second email, it was just you and
Scott?
me.
Great, it's
Nobody
Scott.
else even participated.
All I'm saying is you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind,
Yeah,
and
exactly. And so now we're here because people want to get involved with it.
Then repeal the policy manual because it has no meaning.
Standards of production.
Which is that every candidate should have a standing lectern, every standard should have a wired microphone.
That was the problem in Georgia.
Yeah.
They had it wired, but they didn't.
Okay, but when you get the candidate who says they have a phobia of something, everything can go on LPDI. Everything can.
That vote's passed. So I likely would have voted. I thought our point of order was.
The policy manual means
Correct.
nothing.
I think what happens is sometimes I probably want to get the outcome policy manuals. I'm a process-oriented guy. So
Oh, I'm very rules.
I'm very rules-oriented, and I might have,
Move to amend the policy manual then if they want a different policy manual.
So would you support that kind of?
I'm not sure that production standards is enough to stop where.
Oh yeah, no, because I can see it very. Listen, there's some porn productions that are.
Yes, very high quality.
I feel like it would at least put a
Very high quality video, Mr. Weir.
You guys just gave an open invitation to Jeff Wood and the Audacious Caucus, and those guys had a lot of energy.
Well, let me ask you this: the motion was specifically for doing
But now we can't violate the policy manual if we don't. Mr. Phillips said he is fine with it all.
I'm not saying this might not solve the problem, but it would at least put a higher bar that hopefully.
Video is art, so now we're going to start saying what is proper.
Well, because when you start talking about standards, it's just a wide open. What exactly what is art? Is the infamous Christ art production?
I'm sorry?
Had some requirements for,
I mean, some people might think a very professional debate would be a film noir style that would bring in tension and have minds.
Video source. That's all I'm asking. All right, that is literally all I'm asking here. I feel like that's not too much.
Chris, if you have really good sound, then you'll get to hear it.
I'm all for
the excess flush lapping really well.
We are.
I'm very good friends. I would say good friends. I know the people on the Audacious Caucus very well, and I just know. Well, it could be, but they have a lot of control there. I didn't mean to impugn if I need to write an apology to the LP of Michigan. It's just, well, I can tell you, I can tell you there's some in LP Colorado that right now will be chomping their teeth. It's not just, we're just not organized enough yet to do anything. We have our own internal strike, but
well, anyway, you made your decision.
So Dan, what you said, is there a current standards that exist?
it's like I used to say, do you want more naked dancing men? This is how you get it.
Separate soundboard, a person monitoring, at least 3 cameras, lectern.
We're going to do that. Let's create other standards like
waist circumference, which is smaller than. So compromise on that.
And if we do this thing for the professional qualities, you know what the next objection is gonna be, is that we're discriminating against povertarians that cannot afford such equipment. And some little affiliate that has 2 members in it is going to be like, well, we wanna host a debate, they weren't poor.
We're gonna use your iPhone.
Right.
Because over here,
Okay.
shadows are across from lights all the time, or across from eyes all the time. I mean, it's like superheroes, superheroes. But, that's why we do that. But I think that standing is an important thing.
I wanna support our candidates, that's why, but can't.
No. Customer service?
I mean, if the National Party wanted to announce that they were holding a debate.
I know, invited everyone. That's,
No.
if that's what they want, that's what they should do, we should raise money towards that. No.
Well, just give me the
Say,
front
well,
desk.
everybody who would like that.
Give me the front desk.
Front
Front
desk.
desk.
Wayne, it wasn't anything as interesting as you think, it was just, a debate's getting posted on the website, a very nice professional debate. But the question then is, do we host all debates on the website? If you open it to one, you have to open it to all, and even though the LP of Georgia one is beautiful.
They don't care if the video's terrible. And so, I've been working on this with John for a long time.
What do you do then, what I said, when the audacious caucus hosts a debate in which a dildo is one of the debate participants?
Now, we had a problem with the Adam's mic going out. Okay, so that's. Right, but there was just, that's like one of those things that I say.
What do you call it?
Deniability. We should not be
What's it
lying.
called?
Because-
Plausible deniability.
Show me that we can do one fucking perfect show. Show me the
Yeah, I'm staying at the 1947. I'm able to retire on
Exactly, those are things. And so I think that it's very reasonable. We are working towards and that's the thing about it. I agree with you. I mean, I think John has to
No, I talk.
Yeah, I'm with the Libertarian group for a movie right over like 1947.
You have to have the cooperation of the state. So you're majority of the.
Can you do one? Because we're still here, no show. Thank you. Oh. Yeah.
That's not true. We can give you our search statistics and our Alexis page rating. Media is getting a shit ton of hits, and the media are going there. And they realize it's not an official thing. So there is that distance that we need.
Someone find a signature machine here somewhere?
Yeah. But you want to walk around here?
Only if we can do our best.
So we don't get access to that. I know, we try all the what they have, let's use what they do, and not potentially open the door for people to place in the middle of Elfie. been told that my first video casts were not enough, just the iPhone, and I went out and had to buy a road mic. But see, here's the thing, I don't think that's actually needed. I think everyone will have at least iPhones probably. But it's not everyone. See, I don't think, but to me, it's what's most important is I don't think we need to codify it, because I think the shittiest technology today is the best. So why do you need to codify it? Oh, I think. What, that's what their iPhone did.
You really in?
What's that?
Are you really in?
Okay, does the
What do you mean,
debate
look at
need
it?
to
Oh,
be
yeah,
clear?
yeah.
See, that's, when you put these challenges before, we're not Republicans in that, they're not
It'll work out pretty well.
raised
Yeah.
to, listen,
The room ratings
the
are
whole
great.
reason people
Yeah.
lose their membership is because of
Yeah,
libertarian.
well, I mean, after everything we talked about tonight.
Right,
The minute you throw a,
Yeah,
here's a challenge,
the flights weren't bad either.
Yeah.
okay,
I heard the rooms are huge. I'm staying off site. I heard the rooms are huge.
right, but it won't be on LP.org.
For the price of it. Still keep me on the towel.
Yeah, but I actually,
Type it out.
it's not all on the machine. I should have said.
Okay.
It was pretty awesome. It's like this whole strip.
But it's not on our website.
So it's like a whole little, like original stuff from like the 1800s.
But here's the thing, if we didn't want porn, that we didn't want dildos or sexual items, we can make those rules in LG. We can put the debates
That's pretty good. Across the street, this is a 48 flag.
All right. Did they buy the
original flag? I don't know. It's talking about
So for the local county, right, just remember that it's also, but, no two spots in that, they start setting up. But,
calls this road here.
let me run past. So that's the,
Edit the crack on this.
we'll probably, yeah.
I don't see an Airbnb.
Was it normal room? Yeah.
Yeah, that might be $5 for like Saturday and Sunday. It's like
Tice is good, a good guy, man. He throws too many bombs, bro. So he's all right.
It's kind of not cool. Yeah, he's like all the main matches. Yeah, absolutely.
Had a couple years to come back, but.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. And, you know, I'm looking forward to
I don't think I've seen anything of it here, but.
Mike, yes.
There's definitely stuff to do.
Yeah.
How was your
Yeah. Okay.
Right here,
Because I
Anybody with master?
But not as much as. Yeah. Like one person was laying on the You know, happens and happens.
But I was
Can't live life in fear of everything. I mean, I had to do a layover. We get to go to LA.
Yeah, exactly.
Sucks. Today I got a direct flight from midnight, and then I land at 8 a.m. And then at 8 a.m. I gotta hop on an Uber, get back home. At 10 a.m. I can be
Sorry, I'm
It's like your birthday. Bless you. Yeah. So I have to be like, I have to be at the top of my game because it's like your first day, that's when you set the tone for everything.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I'll just enjoy the moment and be like, you know what, I'll be a little bit dumb.
Exactly.
Yep. I'm dead, man. What's up?
I said Marty. But it's also part of
There's once here, once there. Yes, I am. I actually am a member of that conference.
We could put it on the short page, you know, we'd be more than willing to restructure that.
A contender for the most status custody in the country.
What do you know?
Well, it's interesting statistic. Illinois has the most units of government of any state in the country by almost double. No, period. Just flat out. California has like 4,100. Illinois has almost 7,500. All the little townships and park boards and everything. Dead certain statement. So if you took a picture of the map and went right in the middle, right there. Decatur sucks. Decatur used to be very nice. It was factory too, but it was doing very well. Then Firestone closed their factory, Sexcel closed their factory, Caterpillar cut back production, you know, anyways, just in several locations, right, and so, and ADM, and tape numbers is another.
Alex, we've got a quorum.
Okay.
They moved their both of those.
10:41, right?
Yeah, so let's go. 10 minutes to get acquainted.
Among the highest percentage.
So, regional reports.
Okay. Well, no, I think we still have.
Do we have something else?
We have
Are we doing the rest of the? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have like 10 minutes for Facebook data sharing.
Right. That came out, so yeah, it'd be the policy manual.
Okay, so start getting everyone together. Yep.
No, but I think you'd be great for LPDS. We'll take you. Be careful what you wish for.
She will put you to work, trust me.
Okay, everybody. So we're gonna move on to 20 minutes for policy manual changes, and yeah.
Okay, going back to OneNote. 1 second here. All right. The item that was immediately after the executive director / ED thing, which, didn't happen. The next item is policy manual disputed items, Ray, numerals. And this is similar to the gender neutral thing where if it's agreed upon for one, it will be a bulk motion. And what the issue is, what I had done and the initial team that I worked on, this is prior to pairing up with Alicia, it was Mr. Hagan and Mr. Seebeck and I did some things, remember a while ago in the policy manual, is everywhere it had a number, I spelled it out, and then in parentheses, put it in the numerical portion. I did that so I'm moving, so I can have a motion, so I can make my argument. I'm moving to make this list of changes, the substance of which is where there's numbers, it spells it out and then puts the number in parentheses. The reason I did this...
Is there a second?
Okay, sorry. The reason I did this, it is stylistic and a matter of opinion on one hand. And it's partly from my legal background that this is standard. But I believe it also adds clarity. Some people respond better to seeing the numericals and some people respond better to seeing the words. But there is actually also a Chicago Manual of Style reason I did this. The Chicago Manual of Style is our style guide. And if you go to Rule 9.2 in the Chicago Manual, it has a rule that we generally don't follow. We tend to follow the rule of spelling out only 1 through 10 and then 11 and up putting the numbers. But that's not actually what Chicago says. Chicago recommends spelling out 1 through 100. Has some exceptions. And then you start going through this, well, is this an exception? Is it not an exception? I'd rather not worry about it. Do both. It accommodates all kinds of readers and it's standard. And this is very common in, I don't want to say like technical documents, but like official governing document types things. But I will admit right off the bat, it is my style preference, and that either way would be right, but I think this is better.
Mr. Longstreth?
I would be in favor of this. For those of you who've ever had to go through and try to find something in the policy manual as far as what's the passage limit, what's, how many votes does it take to get X, Y, Z, to have that number jump out at you as you look through the policy manual, the actual physical number, it is very helpful to see 2/3. It jumps out real quick, whereas if you're going through and you're looking for words, while it is technically correct, it still gives the same information. Having both in there appeases all sides of this potential issue, and it is rather non-substantive, so I'll be in favor of this.
Mr. Bishop-Henchman?
Call the question.
Is there objection to ending debate? There's objection to ending debate. All in favor of ending debate, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Opposed? 3. 4. Did anyone speak against?
No.
Okay. I'm going to recognize Ms. Mattson to speak against before we end debate. Go ahead.
I oppose this change. Frankly, I find it really aggravating when I'm reading through that I have to skip over duplicate instances of the numbers. It's not a standard. It's not part of the Chicago Manual standard. It's not legal brief standard. It's not standard anywhere. And I find it incredibly annoying when I'm searching for something. I know I can search for 2/3 as a word or either a number and get it. So I don't have any trouble finding things in the policy manual the way it is. And I think it's just extra verbiage that gets in the way and it really irritates me. So I'm speaking against.
Okay. We'll now move to a vote. A yes vote will adopt the policy manual changes in PM disputed items re numerals in the 1 no. A no vote will not adopt the changes. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10 to 5, the amendment passes.
Next item. This is for previous notice. Okay, the next item was miscellaneous remaining. We already disposed of adding the vice chair reports. But if you go to there, you look at, there's the next item, it's a page 61, where it is just the reformatting of a list. And it was something we didn't reach agreement on. And Ms. Madsen can let me know if I don't believe it was because we thought it changed any meanings. It was more of preferences. So I would move to make those changes.
Second. Do you need to speak to it more?
No, I just think it's more readable.
Would anyone like to speak against? Ms. Madsen?
I'm trying to recall the discussion after so many of them that come together in my head. So I think, just to me, this was kind of shuffling around one preference over another, but there is also a typo in that first one. The H is missing on monthly, which is really just.
I'll take care of the
per
typo.
I just caught that, but I think this one was just. I didn't see that the new wording was any better. It just didn't seem like there was a point to it.
Mr. Longstreth?
This is a point of inquiry, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at bullet point 3, and it seems to almost add something that requires staff to turn in reports 2 weeks prior to a scheduled LNC meeting. Is that a change to our policy manual, or is that already in there and I've just missed it?
It's already in there. It's moving it from the front. If you look at bullet point 3, it used to start with that phrase.
So this has not been followed then, is that
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about whether it's been followed. I'm just looking at how it's worded.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that wishes to discuss the motion? Seeing no one else seeking to discuss the motion, are we prepared to move to a vote on the motion? A yes vote will adopt these stylistic changes in PM MISC remaining disputed items in the OneNote on page 61. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Opposed? 1, 2. 12 to 2, it passes.
Okay, and now there is one last here. This is not a dispute. This is just a notification that I want to make sure that no one objects to. Ms. Madsen and I believed that there were changes that do not require a vote and that I can just make, and it has to do with deleting extra spaces around M dashes and N dashes and things like that. And I didn't want to just make them without giving notice to the LNC. There's no vote needed unless someone objected to me just making these.
Hearing no objections, is there anything else on this item?
Not on this item, but I would ask the chair's indulgence. I could let you. I'd like to say something that earlier. You can interrupt me if you just don't. Earlier, I had made a statement regarding a particular affiliate saying they were going to do something, and I want to apologize to that affiliate just because there might be certain members that might do something weird. It wasn't appropriate to say something, so I do make an apology to the Libertarian Party of Michigan. I did not mean to insult them.
Okay. Is there anything else on this agenda item? Hearing nothing else on this agenda item, we are on 10 minutes for Ms. Van Horn to discuss website sharing data with Facebook.
Yeah, Mr. Phillips has kindly reshared the link, the box link, to our email list if anyone had not seen it when it was initially shared. A Libertarian Party member in Region 3 sent a link to me, and he sent it to Mr. Phillips and multiple other people. That's all over Facebook and social media. Fox and other news medias were putting this information out there. And in the link, it takes you to a place where you can learn how to see what information is being shared to Facebook from different entities out there that you go to on the website. And Libertarian Party is one of those sites. So our national Facebook page is sharing information and data. Our national website is sharing information to Facebook and maybe to other places too, I don't know. This is specific to Facebook, I believe. My question would be, is if we could find out what information is specifically being shared, and if we're not sure, can we find out about it and maybe direct that question to Dan, that's right here. I also wanted to say that I don't care if people know I go to the Libertarian Party website. I'm a libertarian, it's okay, but other people in the party, that there might be specific data being shared that we don't want to be shared. So I would just want to ask that question.
Mr. Fishman.
So Facebook uses a mechanism called Pixel, and it's commonly used across the internet. Essentially the way that it works is there's a one-by-one GIF that is shared from another site. We see that the request comes in for that person. It's tracked via Facebook. The information that we share to Facebook is these people saw Pixel ID 123 567 912 14. We can then schedule ads on Facebook saying, anybody who has seen Pixel 123 567, et cetera, please show them our ads. So the information that we are sending to them is essentially that somebody has visited our page who has a Facebook account. And that's it. Facebook now stores, let's say for example you went to and saw Pixel 123 567 8910. That belongs to the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party has asked to be able to show ads to people who have visited the Libertarian Party website. That is the extent of the information that we share. We don't share anything about you because we don't know anything specifically about you. We can potentially mine that information a little bit more, but we're not sharing information from our side at all. Facebook has more information about you, and we can then say, we'd like to send everything who has been to our webpage and who, what you know about them on Facebook, lives in Indiana. So we can have more specific targeting based on those things. Facebook has the information that you live in Indiana. We don't know that.
May I ask a question or make a suggestion? Or does everybody else talk about
I was waiting and see if anyone else was seeking to be recognized, so I will recognize Mr. Phillips first and then come back to you.
I just want to point out, because it came up yesterday, the reason that we did not go to Dan just directly as a private conversation is because it was made public. It wasn't an intent to slight anybody or to do anything, but because it did go public, that's why we adjusted this way so that it begins with public.
Mr. Fishman.
One other thing that I will add is that also if you have received emails from us, you will notice that the emails have links in them so that when you click on a link in an email or a member clicks on a link in an email, we know this member who we sent an email address to clicked on this email. That's how we try to deliver better information as opposed to spamming the members with every single email that we send out.
Ms. Van Horn.
I appreciate you answering. In interest of what Mr. Phillips had said, this has publicly gone out all over social media, and a lot of people are sharing that the Libertarian Party is sharing information on Facebook. Would you be able to put some of that in writing, what you just said here, so we could have an actual statement maybe on an email so people can read it? Because if our constituents come back to us and say, what did you find out? We'll have to say, well, go look at the email, go look at the link in the video and find that little tiny picture for you told us. So, something in writing.
Right. Yeah.
Easy to understand information.
Yes, I can certainly put something on the page saying that we use Facebook Pixel.
The request was for you to provide something in writing to Ms. Van Horn by email.
This can be done.
Not to clutter up our webpage.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing no further discussion on this item is complete. We will now move into regional reports, starting with region number 1.
Region 1 has submitted their report and is open to questions. Otherwise, the material is in there. Yes, sir.
Mr. Phillips.
Just New Mexico's Region 1, am I correct?
Correct.
And they achieved,
Oh, yes, thank you.
party status again?
Yeah.
Are you major party status?
Yes,
again?
they achieved major party status again. That is an update I did want to include. Thank you for reminding me.
So I would like to give them a round of applause.
Absolutely, please. And if I could add to that, that is an efforts to a lot of activities on it, a lot of door knocking in that area, specifically calling out Tom Mann and Chris Lucchini for really doing everything they can to continue pursuing that. I love LP New Mexico. They take care of themselves a lot of times, and sometimes we forget to mention them. So thank you for reminding me about that, Mr. Phillips.
Ms. Harlos?
This is a recent development, and my husband, Mr. Harlos, knows a little bit more about it, but Colorado is really, it's a total repeal of the death penalty that just happened?
Yes.
Did the governor sign it?
Yeah, that's,
No, it's not there yet.
Not signed yet? Okay.
but has it passed both?
That's the Senate and School House now.
Okay, so it's well on its way.
Mr. Wendt?
As an addendum to it, it's not in the report, but Utah's tax referendum effort has achieved in excess of all signatures in all counties. So that is a very good
A big round of applause to Mr. Bowden for all his work.
Absolutely.
Is it correct that the New Mexico Party has a Senate candidate that will help them maintain major party ballot access, who could use financial support in order to get on the ballot?
There have been no requests made to me at this time to bring before this body. However, it has been indicated to me that yes, they do have a Senate candidate and I believe a governor candidate as well. And they are still trying to recruit more candidates for those roles.
And that would help them retain major party ballot access?
It would.
And so if people were interested in supporting New Mexico major party ballot access, they should contact the New Mexico chair?
Absolutely. And I have that contact information if anybody's interested.
Okay. It's a little windy outside. Ms. Harlos?
Yeah, one thing I did also wanted to bring up, because I forgot before, and because I know this will be of interest to Chair Sarwark as well, is that Denver is now an affiliate again. So for a while, Colorado, we were ashamed that the biggest city was not yet an affiliate, but Denver County is now an affiliate again and very active.
Yay! All right, no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Longstreth. Region 2, Mr. Nikela.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for Region 2, Tennessee, we wrapped up our state convention on January 11th, and we have 3 endorsed local candidates. And we're also partnering with Alicia Dern on ballot access litigation in that state. So we do appreciate her help. Georgia concluded their state convention on the 17th. They endorsed several of their statewide candidates at the convention, including a Senate and 2 public service commission races. They've also endorsed a few special election candidates, one for an open seat, one for a vacated seat. Right now, ballot access is still a big deal in Georgia, and they are, right now they have on the back burner, but they do seek to pursue litigation against the, basically for ballot access in that state. So right now, they're still in holding pattern. For Florida,
Yeah, I'm sorry, there's a lawsuit going on with that right now, right? That litigation is ongoing against 5% signature requirement in the U.S. House.
Yes. I believe it is ongoing. Ryan Graham let me know it's in a holding pattern, so I don't know right now what that might mean, but I guess they're still pursuing it, but they're possibly seeking resources to pursue fully. So I will reach out to him. Florida, we're going to be having our state convention in February 21st to the 23rd in Orlando. We'll be hosting a presidential debate as well. Karen will be there, and anybody else that wants to join us is more than welcome. And Josh will be there as well.
I think Mr. Bishop Henchman will be too.
Mr. Henchman and others. It's going to be a big convention. We really, our political goal for 2020, and this is something I've spoke with Jim Turney, who's our head of candidate support. We want to see 20 appointed public officials to local boards. So that might mean going to their local city councilman or county commissioner and asking what board positions are open. So we want to be able to build people up, and with political clout, so by the time they want to run for local office, they already have the connections they need to be successful. We're looking at 50 LPF. We want to have 50 LPF members joining local civic organizations and groups.
Under the table.
We want to see 20 candidates in live training events And we want to see 20 public officials re-elected, so that's incumbents re-elected. And we're going to continue Operation First Step, which is a heavy emphasis on nonpartisan local races for candidates, and we want to build that candidate pipeline up. We don't want to be the soil and water board party. We want to have our candidates who come in, they get elected to local office, they build clout, and the next time they run for higher and higher level positions. And then as incumbents, they get the people underneath them that want to run in those lower level positions to run, and they keep moving up and up and up politically. We build that candidate pipeline moving upwards. Another thing we're looking forward to in November that might be of interest to the rest of the body is that we had a voter guide for November last year. We had like 35,000 online hits to our LPF.org page that were completely unsolicited from people all around the state that wanted to know of what to vote on for the statewide election, for our amendments, for everything else. So we do plan on creating a voter guide for November, and it's going to be a tool we're going to use and we're going to hand out to our local affiliates so that they can actually give that out to voters while they're out there.
Yeah, your voter guide, does it have like issues, like this issue that you find is a hot topic, is the candidate support or oppose that, is that?
So we had a lot of amendments on the ballot in 2018.
Yeah.
And so actually it was 2016 where we had it. And we had a lot of, so what we did is we had it online, so we had an amendment on whether or not we should make it illegal to have greyhound racing. And we voted, no on that, or no on this, or no on this. Now, Floridians like to say yes to everything just to see what happens. So we had a lot of constitutional amendments that passed, but a lot of people were really interested in that voter guide. I think it would.
Is that voter guide still on your website?
It might be. It might be an older.
That sounds really awesome.
Remind me. I can try to send you a link or a PDF copy of it. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to see that as well. And Ms. Van Horn, if you write me, Colorado does that a lot. And
I would like to see some things like that.
because I'd like to compare.
Certainly, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking about getting it in a little paper, a little cardboard paper.
That'd be something that would build
pass out.
traffic to a website and also inform people, would be a public service and also something very libertarian minded for our counties and our state affiliates and region.
And I think it'll give us a lot of authority too when we're out there handing out these voter guides and say, by the way, here's my candidate, and here's a voter guide, and this is from the Libertarian Party of Florida. So when you get in the ballot box, most people have no idea what they're voting on. It's a very short description of what they're voting on. It's a very yes or no impulse to vote. At least they have that voter guide, and I think that'll be something that'll be very effective to have.
Kudos to whoever bought that.
Enough with the crosstalk. Thank you. Mr. Hagan.
Yeah, Nevada's also done the voter guide and found it be very popular, even among non-libertarians, because you have the ballot questions. They want to know how others think about those. In a lot of nonpartisan offices, we rate or put suggestions for the judges and stuff. So it's something I think all states should look into. Something to do.
Mr. Goldstein.
Mr. Wilson in Georgia got the money for his filing fees? I'm not sure if I can follow up. Thanks.
Okay. Time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Nikela. Region 3, Ms. Van Horn.
Yeah, the report's in the minutes, and if anybody's interested, I just want to point out just a couple of things. We've had some good people in the different states in Region 3 taking it upon themselves to do training, and I might have mentioned this last time, but Libertarian Party of Indiana, in November, it's the same weekend we had our Miami convention. But 3 of our Libertarian Party of Indiana people went to leadership training, comprehensive fundraising training for 4 days with the Leadership Institute. It was Jeff Maurer, Mohammed Abasai, and Duke Van Horn went. But recently we had someone in Kentucky organize. Christy Kendrick organized a campaign affiliate boot camp training, January 18th and 19th. And along with Don Johnson, they had Apollo Hazel and Kara Schultz there. And comprehensive training for candidates and affiliates, and it was really well attended throughout the area near Kentucky. People from other states attended, and Christy went out of her way to set up for candidates to have free headshots taken, professional photos at no charge to them, and that was well received also. So that's an activist out of Kentucky, and I believe she's also been profiled on our Libertarian National website, and I just wanted to do a shout out to her for doing such a great job.
Questions for Ms. Van Horn? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Van Horn. Region 4.
Yeah, you can't see anything if it's written on something this dark, so they have their own map exercise
this all answered. If we don't have any questions, I would like to defer the rest of the time for Aaron Starr without objection to bring us up on he and Alicia's. They're doing monumental work here in Oxygen, showing this power of the initiative. And with no objections, I'd like him to bring us up to date on it.
If there's no objection, Mr. Starr, go ahead.
Actually, I think Alicia can probably do just as fine a job as I can here at the table. So if you want to talk about that, I think you can do it shorter than I can.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Was the short bit. All right, so I'm just going to give you the latest chapter. So the longer story is on our blog, but we did qualify 5 initiatives for the ballot, and strange things happened to them once the city council got their fingers on them. So they did put 1 on the November ballot. 3 of them they have announced they're soon to try to keep them off the ballot. And 1 of them played the pump leaders game. So we have an initiative that put term limits on the city council. And ours is 2 terms take a break. And the city council, once they saw we filed the initiative, while we're out spending our time collecting signatures, they can, plot against, because they can put something on the ballot really fast with 1 vote. So, okay, we'll put our competing measure on. There's one for November, we'll put it on in March. So what we're going to do, when ours has enough signatures, it has to go through city council, and they have 2 options. They can adopt it, or they can put it on the ballot. So January 21st, ours comes through to either be adopted or put it on the ballot. So what do? They adopted it after I missed part of the story. They put a measure on the March ballot for 3 terms instead of 2, and it has a loophole where you can evade the terms by switching seats. So they adopted ours on January 21st, knowing theirs is on the March 3rd ballot, and voters don't know we have term limits, so they'll likely override
The 2.
the tighter term limits. So they're not honoring the will of all the people who signed the petitions that they want this option on the ballot. So they're playing a dirty trick. They've already got printed materials out telling people that their measure will establish term limits as if they don't exist. So, they've made some of their printed materials false by their dirty little activity. So that's the kind of things that we're dealing with, but we're not done. So stay tuned. I don't know any other.
I think get questions, talk to us afterward.
Yes.
It's a lot.
It's a much longer story.
There's a lot going on. People are fascinated by the story. I know several of you are already asking to place on our email list, so you can see read yourself what's going on, because it is just an amazing drama. David versus Goliath, good versus bad. It's really good.
They're flat out using city funds to campaign. We don't get to do that. So glossy mailer that the city put out saying that their measure will establish term limits. That's false. So that's what we do.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Dr. Lark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I submitted the report on behalf of Region 5. I'll be happy to entertain questions.
Are there questions for Dr. Lark? Thank you, Dr. Lark. Region 6.
I also submitted a report. I have emailed an addendum this morning, which I'm going to go over and highlight a couple highlights of things that are in the report. The first is that the State Chair of Iowa requested to recognize Tara Schultz and Andy Burns for their efforts in training, because they have done such a good job. In Illinois, we've really stepped up the lobbying. Most of the hands of Jake Leonard, who's done a fantastic job in lobbying. We've got some bills that are supposed to even the playing field for ballot access that, of course, we're fighting an uphill battle on, but he's actually really stepped up his lobbying efforts and drafted some people from helping him out. So hopefully we're making some progress on that. Dalton Brown in North Dakota was invited to the presidential security, or the briefing on presidential campaign security, and he was at least informed that he was the only state chair in the country to get that invitation. He forwarded on the documentation they gave him, so if anybody's interested in that, I have forwarded, in that addendum there is a link to my Google Drive with those documents in it. report to tell us that they have 3 candidates running for Congress. Dennis Grace in District 1, Dustin Hobbs in District 3, and they have a person who prefers to remain anonymous running for District 2 if he wants to remain anonymous until he's actually filed. Other than that, on a personal note, I'm having similar issues fighting against my city council to you guys and Mr. Howard Buffett and his millions and millions of dollars buying our city council. But we were featured in the Intercept and other fun things like that. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask. No, but the mayor did tell me that she was quite tired of hearing from me.
I just also wanted to highlight that Dalton Brown and his small band of libertarians in North Dakota also got themselves ballot access too. So
right,
yeah.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool.
There are hardy people in the North Country.
Yeah, there's all 5 of them.
Oh, that's they are just because it comes up other places. Their vice chair is running for and this is in the report. Their vice chair is running for office under the Democratic ticket.
Okay.
And they are seeking to address that in their bylaws.
Huh. No.
Strange.
Interesting times.
No.
Any other questions for Mr. Phillips? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Phillips. Region 7.
I submitted a written report. We don't have any supplements. However, Aaron and I do want to point out that Alabama and Arkansas are likely to need our help at some point. They're not asking for it right now. Arkansas did it by themselves last time. However, they're both in legal battles right now, so maybe that support could potentially be in the form of legal at some point. So we just want to make sure
Texas too. We got the injunction in Texas.
Yeah, we have Texas has issues too. Ballot access specifically might be okay for a little while longer, but
we're trying to control the nominating process there, and not only in the convention.
now we've got other things. But I think we're going to be on the ballot there for the next term at least. But Alabama and Arkansas would be the ones that we'd be most concerned about right now.
Questions for Region 7? Seeing none, thank you. Region 8, Mr. Ford.
Region 8, I'm embarrassed to admit that Mr. O'Donnell, I'm trying to reach Mr. O'Donnell. He is, as you all know, in the midst of a multi-day, multi-platform event on behalf of Liberty right now in New Hampshire. So a report got somehow lost in the sauce, it would appear. We will remedy that. From what I understand, they are having an amazing event right now in New Hampshire. Great forum. I'd like to point out one lesson that we learned in the last couple of weeks relative to return media. With the election of a local favorite son, if you will, and I should say the announcement of a local favorite son that he was running for the election, we received, as you can imagine, a lot of press. Boston Globe, multiple major network media outlets called in to ask about Mr. Chafee. We learned a valuable lesson on this on a couple levels. Number one, despite all their best efforts to get us to say something negative about Mr. Chafee, we refused to. We welcomed him to the party, and we started to elaborate on the actual process of electing, and I should say nominating candidates to run for the presidency. A lot of the media is under the mistaken belief that Mr. Chafee was already the nominee, and that he did not have to go through an arduous multi-state process. And what it afforded us the opportunity to do was to flip the conversation and go into an extended conversation about, well, how we elect our candidates, how we are not the duopoly. We talked about things like we don't have superdelegates, and we don't bind delegates to the election. And people found a lot of interest in that. I mean, the Globe actually reported that, the Providence Journal reported that, and the NBC affiliate reported on that live. And so, whether you are fortunate enough to have someone local running for office or not, I think there's great opportunity right now to promote in the wake of the allegations that the DNC is about to flip the rules on Bernie, what a transparent process that we have generating from the groundswell of a true grassroots movement that's going on right now in front of us for the nomination for the presidency. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to reach out to the media. It was very well received, and we got mentions in about a half a dozen major outlets simply because they focused on that. And they actually listed other candidates because we mentioned other candidates in the same conversation, much to the delight of Mr. Thrasher. So I just point that out as an opportunity, and we got mentions everywhere because of it.
Thank you. Ms. Harlos?
To Mr. Hewitt as well, oh, you did email your napkin, right? You emailed your napkin? Okay, I'm still going through. Okay, never mind. Mr. Ford, if you send that to me before I get the draft minutes out, I will get it attached.
And we thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Fishman?
I was just going to add to as a former Region 8 representative, the Connecticut Convention is February 29th. The Massachusetts Convention is March 23rd.
Thank you. I would also note, for anybody who didn't know, Mr. Fishman traveled all the way up to the wilds of New Hampshire to speak to the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire's state convention. It's much appreciated.
I just got a live
Mr. Ford.
Field, and if you don't mind. Candidates are petitioning in New York. Petition drive started in New Hampshire. The mass convention to elect delegates is in March. I have a whole new respect for the convention committee after these past 2 weeks. So Mr. O'Donnell sends out his regards to the convention oversight committee based on his experiences doing something on a similar basis.
I have a further update from Liberty Forum in speaking to my top secret operative at the Libertarian Party table. They were almost to their 10th membership, which was the goal. So kudos to Valerie Sarwark and Jess Mears for working the Libertarian Party table. Mr. Phillips.
New Hampshire is starting conditioning. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
And they have to, they cannot substitute presidential.
They cannot.
So we will have to do a second petition drive.
Second is not entirely legally clear. The specific situation is that we will have to gather the appropriate number of signatures for the presidential candidate subsequent to the presidential candidate being nominated. So if there are other signatures that were gathered for governor, Congress, Senate, etc., those would be additive. So all of those drives will do better. But we will still have to gather, someone will have to gather all the presidential signatures subsequent to the convention.
Thank you.
You're welcome. They also have really nice petition forms in New Hampshire. And when I say really nice, they're awful.
Yeah. The sarcasm came through quickly.
Good. Time has expired on Region 8. I believe that concludes regional reports. Are there announcements?
Mr. Chairman, I move to suspend the rules to set the time of the next LNC meeting.
At the National Convention.
Did we set that already?
It's at the convention.
It's at the National
I
Convention.
know it's at the convention. Was it already set?
Well, so what exists is there's a time that the Convention Oversight Committee is pretty sure they've allotted to our meeting at convention, but the LNC voted on it?
Yeah.
Did we?
It's already been done.
Did we did vote on it?
Yes.
I can look.
If you guys believe we voted on it at the last meeting, then that's out of order.
I'll straighten up, Mr. Chairman.
Who knows what it's been, but it's also somewhat constrained by the logistical fact of there's a time that they're going to give us the room, and we damn well better be there.
3 to 6 p.m. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
For 3 to 6 Thursday, the 21st.
Okay. Are there any announcements? Seeing no announcements, orders of the day would have us adjourned. Is there objection?
I object, Mr. Chair, just because it is customary for us to open it up one more time for public comment, and I would like to do that for anybody that would like to.
It's kind of like trying to blend announcements with public comment, but okay. Is there any public comment that was not an announcement?
There was someone, I believe, who...
There is not. Orders of the day would have us adjourn. Is there any objection to adjourning? There isn't, and we are adjourned at 11:22 local time. Well done.
Earliest ever of all time.
Super Bowl squares, if you don't have your Super Bowl squares, come and get them right now.
What should my penance be? Now I can go check out. I just knew I would be done early enough before noon that I could go.
2752.
Well, yeah, come from
I don't know. It's Nevada. There's really nothing to do. Probably just no. There's no entertainment options at all.
So just to be clear too, 2752 is the resort tower. So people who went to 2752 in this tower would be unhappy.
Oh, there's the same number in different towers?
There's a 27 in the other tower.
So what happens is if you go up the wrong elevator, you just don't see the number you want. If you go up the wrong elevator, the number will not be on the wall. You'll be like, I can't.
There is a 27 floor on the other elevator.
Yeah, but what's going to happen when you come off the elevator? You're going to be like, it's going to be like New England. You can't get there from here. No, I did it the other night. I went up the wrong elevator and I was like, there's this room I need to go to, and I'm looking at the set of rooms on the wall, and I'm like, I can't go there from here. There's no. What time does that official start? 3 or 3:30. I think the time start.
It's like 3:30.
Yeah.
Something like that. I didn't know that. I thought yesterday he said this one was early too. So I kept watching the other.
Like I said,
he made it. He said, yeah, we'll be right back. A lot of people.
Stomach ever feel better?
It makes 30 seconds. So that's why when you tell yourself, chicken wings and
Oh, that's awesome. Well, chicken wings, yes.
Which is, well, then you're fine. Legally, you're good.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what teams do if you just have like a thing of candy that's not labeled in your bag, do they like take you through it?
They're weird about food stamps.
Yeah, this is good.
You have to check that. Because it was checking.
Well, no, I mean, if you travel with your gun, you have to check. But you have to also declare. They get real pissed if they find one. I have considered traveling with a weapon before, and every time it's always come down to like, oh no, like I don't need to have a gun enough to go through the hassle.
There's a couple places.
It's part of the reason I don't carry it much at all.
There's a couple places I do. Like if I'm going to Missouri, I do because I know I can constitutionally carry it anywhere.
No. There's lots of places I can carry. Like all the free staters. So many. Not because I'm not about guns. I'm all about guns. Going out with your tactical stuff, starting the move.
Right.
You really want to be on all the facial recognition as identified as somebody having these weapons. That seems tactically inefficient.
I can still carry a cloth.
I'd prefer to not know.
Yeah, I can still It's good seeing you. When are you going to announce? I don't know. I'm trying to get home before the snow.
Yeah, because it says
Yeah, I'm gonna refresh myself now because I gotta catch the shuttle. I gotta catch the shuttle. So I had a little bit to kill. Maybe I'll go places. Recoup some of the money I spent this weekend.
Closer to Lou and I. So we're in the new ball
We're all libertarians here, right? It's time for a meeting.
I think a lot of people I hate those Westies ones. I hate them. I've done it a number of times. That would be terrible.
That was a treasure.
I already spent money on dinner. I'm not spending money on the party. Sorry.